In this episode, we settle into a part of security management that can sound administrative on the surface, but actually shapes how leaders understand risk, make decisions, and judge whether the security program is helping the organization move in the right direction. Many new learners picture security work as policies, incidents, threats, and controls, yet an enormous amount of security leadership depends on the ability to gather the right information and explain it clearly to other people. That is where effective security reports come in. A report is not just a document full of updates. It is a management tool that turns scattered facts into something useful enough to guide action, show progress, reveal problems, and support accountability. For someone preparing for Certified Information Security Manager, CISM, this topic matters because management depends on communication, and one of the most important ways security managers communicate is through reports that help different audiences see what is happening, why it matters, and what may need attention next. Before we continue, a quick note. This audio course is a companion to our course companion books. The first book is about the exam and provides detailed information on how to pass it best. The second book is a Kindle-only ebook that contains 1,000 flashcards that can be used on your mobile device or Kindle. Check them both out at cyberauthor.me in the Bare Metal Study Guide series. At the most basic level, a security report is a structured way of telling the story of security conditions inside an organization. It may describe current risks, control performance, incidents, compliance status, trends, emerging concerns, or the state of ongoing initiatives. What makes it effective is not the amount of information it contains, but the usefulness of that information for the audience receiving it. Beginners often assume a strong report is one that includes as much detail as possible, because more information seems more complete and therefore more professional. In reality, too much unfocused detail can make a report weaker, not stronger. When everything is included, the most important signals are buried under noise, and the audience may leave without knowing what deserves attention. An effective security report is selective, relevant, and intentional. It helps the reader or listener understand the condition of the environment, the meaning of what has changed, and whether any decisions, resources, or follow-up actions are needed as a result. That leads to one of the most important lessons in this topic, which is that a security report must be built for its audience. Different groups need different levels of detail and different kinds of meaning. Senior leaders often want to understand business impact, major trends, significant risks, and whether the organization is improving, declining, or remaining stable in areas that matter. Operational teams may need more detail about issues, timelines, dependencies, and control performance. Risk or compliance stakeholders may want clear evidence of obligations, gaps, remediation status, and accountability. If the same report is delivered to every audience in exactly the same way, it will usually be too technical for some people and too shallow for others. A strong security manager learns how to shape the message without changing the truth. The facts stay consistent, but the explanation is adjusted so that each audience can understand what is most relevant to their responsibilities. That ability to match content to the audience is one of the clearest signs that reporting is being used as a management practice rather than as a paperwork exercise. Another helpful way to understand reporting is to think of it as decision support rather than status narration. Many weak reports simply describe activity. They say how many meetings occurred, how many tickets were closed, how many alerts were reviewed, or how many scans were performed, but they never explain whether those numbers mean the organization is safer, more exposed, better prepared, or falling behind. Activity matters, yet activity alone does not equal security value. Effective reports move beyond counting work and instead show whether important conditions are improving or deteriorating. They help the audience understand whether the organization is managing risk responsibly or simply staying busy. This distinction matters because leaders do not need a catalog of motion. They need insight that helps them judge priorities, allocate resources, and ask better questions. A report becomes effective when it explains not just what happened, but what it means, why it matters, and how it connects to risk, resilience, and organizational goals. Compiling a good report begins with choosing the right content, and that choice should always be guided by purpose. Before assembling facts, a security manager needs to understand why the report exists. Is the goal to inform leaders, track progress, support oversight, reveal risk, demonstrate accountability, or prepare the organization to make a decision. The answer changes what belongs in the report and what should be left out. A report intended for executive awareness may need trend information, high-impact risks, major incident summaries, and program progress. A report intended for operational oversight may need more detail about unresolved weaknesses, corrective actions, resource constraints, and dependencies between teams. New learners often think reporting starts with data collection, but in practice it starts with intention. When the purpose is unclear, the report becomes a container for everything people were able to gather rather than a tool shaped to accomplish something specific. Effective reporting begins when the security manager knows what the audience needs to understand by the end of the communication. Good reports also depend on sound information gathering, because a report can only be as useful as the information behind it. That does not mean every number must be perfect in a mathematical sense, but it does mean the information should be trustworthy, timely, and connected to real conditions. If a report uses outdated figures, inconsistent definitions, or unsupported assumptions, the audience may lose confidence not only in the report, but in the security function that produced it. Trust is a major part of reporting effectiveness. Leaders want to believe that the information they are using to make decisions reflects reality closely enough to support action. That is why compilation involves more than copying numbers from different sources into one place. It includes checking whether the information aligns, whether terms are being used consistently, and whether the overall picture makes sense. A report filled with uncertain or contradictory information can create more confusion than clarity. Careful compilation shows respect for the audience and helps establish the security manager as someone who communicates with discipline and judgment. Context is what turns raw information into meaning. A number by itself rarely tells the full story. If a report states that incidents increased, vulnerabilities decreased, or training completion fell, the audience still needs help understanding whether that change is important, temporary, expected, or dangerous. Context might include comparison to prior periods, explanation of changed business conditions, links to major projects, or a reminder that detection improvements can sometimes make a number rise before security actually improves. Without context, readers may jump to conclusions that are inaccurate or incomplete. Beginners often assume facts speak for themselves, but in security management, facts need interpretation. Effective reports provide that interpretation carefully and honestly. They do not distort the numbers, and they do not hide uncomfortable signals, but they also do not throw isolated data at the audience and expect them to do all the thinking. A good report explains what has changed, why that change likely occurred, and whether leadership should see it as a warning sign, a positive trend, or an issue that deserves closer observation. Clarity in language is just as important as accuracy in content. Security professionals can become so familiar with technical terms that they forget many readers do not share the same background. A report packed with jargon, abbreviations, and dense phrases may sound sophisticated, yet it often weakens communication because the audience has to work too hard to understand the main point. Effective reporting uses plain language wherever possible and introduces specialized terms only when they are truly necessary. The goal is not to oversimplify the subject or remove all nuance. The goal is to make the report easy to follow without sacrificing meaning. This is especially important when speaking to senior leaders because they need a clear understanding of risk and progress, not a test of technical vocabulary. When a report is written clearly, people can focus on decisions, questions, and next steps. When it is written poorly, too much of their energy goes into decoding the message, and the value of the report begins to fade before the discussion even starts. Structure matters because people understand information better when it arrives in a logical sequence. A report that jumps between unrelated issues, mixes conclusions with background detail, or presents the least important material first can leave the audience unsure of what they should remember. Strong reports usually move from the most important message toward the supporting detail. They help the audience quickly understand the condition of the environment, the major developments since the last report, and the issues that deserve attention now. After that foundation is established, the report can provide more detail, evidence, and explanation. This kind of ordering respects the limited attention of the audience and reduces the chance that critical points will be missed. For a beginner, It helps to think of structure as a way of guiding the listener through the information rather than simply placing updates next to one another. When the report has a clear flow, the audience can absorb it more naturally and respond with better questions, better oversight, and better decisions. Another common weakness in security reporting is the absence of prioritization. Not every issue belongs at the same level of attention, and effective reports help the audience see which matters are most significant. If a report presents minor housekeeping items alongside major unresolved risk, as though both deserve equal emphasis, leaders may misunderstand where urgency truly exists. Prioritization does not mean ignoring smaller issues altogether. It means showing proportion. The most serious concerns should be easy to identify, and the report should make clear whether they are growing, stable, or improving. This is one of the ways a security manager demonstrates judgment. Reports are not merely containers for facts. They are filtered views of the security environment created to help the organization focus on what matters most. Beginners sometimes worry that highlighting major concerns will make the report seem negative, but the opposite is usually true. Honest prioritization builds trust because it shows the security function is willing to distinguish between normal background issues and problems that deserve leadership awareness or intervention. Presenting the report is a skill in its own right, because a useful document can still lose impact if the presentation is unfocused, overly detailed, or disconnected from the audience's concerns. Presentation is not just reading the report aloud. It is the act of guiding the audience through the meaning of the report and making space for understanding, discussion, and decision. A security manager presenting effectively knows which messages must be emphasized, which supporting details may need explanation, and where the audience is likely to have questions or concerns. Tone matters here as well. The best presentations are calm, confident, and direct. They neither minimize serious issues nor dramatize them for effect. They help the audience understand where attention is needed without creating confusion or defensiveness. This is especially important when the report contains difficult news. Leaders are more likely to engage constructively when the information is presented with balance, credibility, and enough clarity that they can see both the problem and the possible path forward. One of the most important misconceptions to leave behind is the idea that an effective security report exists mainly to prove that the security team has been working hard. Effort matters, but reporting should not become a performance showcase for the department. The real purpose is to help the organization understand security conditions and act wisely. If the report becomes too focused on defending the team, celebrating activity, or avoiding uncomfortable information, it stops serving management and starts serving image. That shift is dangerous because it weakens oversight and makes it harder for leaders to respond to real problems. Strong security managers are willing to report challenges honestly, including delays, unresolved weaknesses, resource constraints, and areas where risk remains elevated. They do this not to create alarm, but to support informed decision-making. Over time, this honesty strengthens credibility. Stakeholders learn that the report is a reliable picture of reality rather than a polished document designed to make everything appear under control when important work still remains unfinished. Effective reports also connect current conditions to the larger goals of the security program and the organization. A report becomes more meaningful when the audience can see how individual issues relate to broader efforts such as improving resilience, strengthening governance, reducing exposure, supporting compliance, or enabling business change more safely. This connection helps prevent reporting from becoming a collection of isolated updates. It reminds the audience that security management is not only about reacting to incidents or documenting weaknesses. It is also about moving the organization toward a stronger and more sustainable state over time. For beginners, this is an important shift in mindset. The report is not only a mirror showing where the organization stands today. It is also a guide showing whether the program is progressing in the right direction. When security reports are tied to business and program goals, leaders are more likely to see them as part of strategic management rather than as technical administration that matters only to specialists. Follow-up is another often overlooked part of effective reporting. A report should not disappear once it has been delivered. If important issues were raised, decisions requested, or risks highlighted, the next stage is making sure those points are tracked, understood, and revisited appropriately. Reporting without follow-up can create the appearance of accountability without the substance of it. Leaders may hear about the same unresolved problem month after month without clarity on whether progress is being made, who is responsible, or what barriers still exists. Effective reporting closes that gap by connecting past communication to present status. It shows what has changed since the last report, what remains unresolved, and whether prior commitments were met. This continuity is a major part of management maturity because it transforms reporting from a repeating update into a living process of oversight. New learners should notice that the value of a report does not end at delivery. Its value continues through the conversations, decisions, and actions it helps shape over time. As we finish, the central lesson is that compiling and presenting effective security reports is not about producing polished documents for their own sake. It is about gathering reliable information, organizing it with purpose, explaining it with clarity, and delivering it in a way that helps the organization understand risk, judge progress, and decide what needs attention next. Good reports are shaped by audience, grounded in context, honest about priorities, and strong enough to support real accountability. Good presentations bring those reports to life by helping people focus on what matters most without getting lost in unnecessary detail or technical noise. For someone learning CISM concepts, this topic reveals an important truth about security management. Leaders cannot respond well to conditions they do not understand, and they cannot understand those conditions well unless someone presents the information with judgment, discipline, and credibility. Effective reporting is therefore not a side task around security work. It is one of the ways security management becomes visible, useful, and capable of guiding better decisions across the organization.
Thanks for listening. For more audio courses, daily newsletters, and more, please visit baremetalcyber.com.